Waji Dopan Yamni Zapta Shakpesha Go Shagaluga Neptuka Wikshemana 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. You're late. I was worried sick. Where were you? That's my dad, guys. It's I don't know. I don't know him. He's always eating though.
Volume okay, Reuben?
Great, super.
Good. All right, excellent.
You look great, smashing.
Not as good as you. A few more people making their way over.
Nobody looks good as me.
That's right.
He dresses like this all the time, right?
He's a very humble man, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like busting his stones because he's a funny guy. So. As reenactors, we do that all the time. So.
We have a few chairs yet open. At least 3.
Not the same. Not recognizing that space. You need a table, Reuben.
Which tribe was picked from?
This way. It came too late. Oh no, we have a new one.
Have to tighten that. They're loosening up.
Yo ha o chako yo awa mane chaya washte e blok chaya lo yo hada ya heda ya o ya teke washte wala ke le mi lo yo.
Wamitaku yapi le ampetuki le lilo washtelo chichanta ma washte nipe chuzapalo. Le me trashunki luza hamacha nahan me trachuki le wambli washtewi. Naha gakiki iwaslata hamataha naku paha azizi. Ashwana Lechio, Warwick, New York, Elwati. Inawayeki chajepi lakot chajepi tekla sotawi. Naku wishichu chajepi mavis fast horse. Ate wayeki lakot chajepi ki he maraska. Ash wishichu chajepi Joe fast horse. Ichiapi. Naha lechu wa una lechu wogla kikte na lowa wakakite. Don't worry, the show will be in English. I apologize for being a little bit late. It's a little bit hard getting out of Warwick at this time of the year. I said before, come on over. You're late. I don't know that guy. So the whole purpose of this is to talk about the living history. I've just met some people in the parking lot, and we're inquiring about that and how wonderful it is to have an array of different reenactors. We call ourselves reenactors, and so it's interesting because of this living history. I like that name. The living history is what we create. You coming here, as well as if we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat our history, and that's something we don't want to do because we've been through so many wars and so many casualties and so many suffering. Native, non-native, slavery, black slavery, African American. So I want to do is talk about not just the history, but also what we all can learn from each other as reenactors. And I love to engage and talk with them as well. Come on over, guys. And so what I said in my language in Lakota, I've been a Lakota teacher all my life. My parents spoke. But there's not many that speak it anymore, and so we're trying to revive it. And so the LLC, Lakota Language Consortium, out of Indianapolis, Indiana, have made it appropriate for us to learn and teach our own people. And I've been very fortunate. I fell in love with Wamli Washtewi, that's her Lakota name. Good Eagle Woman, that's her name. My name is, his horse is fast. Trashunke Luzaha. In American words, fast horse. So a lot of our names came about being Americanized in the Central Plains, simply because on the East Coast, Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Mohawk, Oneida, Six Nations, they all have English name, Baker, Blacksmith. That's the influence. From our part of the world, north of the Mason-Dixon line, it's all French influence. So a lot of Native American Lakota people have names like La Framboise, or names like Roubidou or Janice. And then south of that line, where Susie had stayed among and went to school in Arizona among the Apache and the Navajo, they have a lot of names that are some of them are native, but then a lot of them are more Spanish influence. Sanchez, Rodriguez, Mendez, all these type of names. And on the West Coast, it's a lot of Russian influence from Seattle down to San Diego and all the natives there. So this is kind of ancient America we're looking at. And using the language helps you to kind of realize that there is no language that is truly christened on America. There's no official. English is not. English is the business language. It's also the scientific language. But there is no official language. And we'll talk about this in a little bit when I demonstrate the first language here. Indian Sign Language predates ASL, what the American Sign Language people call it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So I opened up with a song and a presentation introduction. The song said was really to honor you and everybody here as well that are joining us. And it says, Oyateki washte walakye lemielo. My people, the good that you see is me. Not me singing, talking, but you. Doha o chanku awa mani cha washte iblukchaila. Whenever I walk on this road of life, I try to think and be positive. Oyateki, washte walakye lemielo. My people, the good that you see is me, which is you. So just to share a little bit about that, we'll go for about 45 minutes, and then we'll take some questions that people might want to ask, or if I've answered it. And so far, I've kind of answered some of them, but there'll be more. So we call ourselves the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people. And our language is the mother tongue in North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and Canada. It was an empire. We came from two places, they say. Anthropologists will say, how long have your people been here? And the anthropologists will say, 25,000 years, which is true. But if you ask an elder, Native American elder, how long have your people been here? He'll say, our creation story says forever. And he's right too. Now how was it? It's because of man's construct called time. Time. We didn't have it. We had 13 moons, but now it's 12. We watched the sun and the moon rise. We gauged it by that. Natural forces. But today we go by, well, I got 10 minutes, I'm racing to get here, I got a show at 12:30. And we forget that. And so what we have to think about is that when the Indians came here 25,000 years ago by carbon dating, they came across what I was born on my backside above my tailbone was a dot. Looked like a bruise. And what it was called a Mongolian spot. Now, not all Native Americans have that. Some do, some don't. So I can't speak for all. But there were 4 ice ages that crossed from Siberia, Mongolia to Alaska. And so the people followed the animals, the game, the bison, the muskox into this country and became what is ancient America, Native America. And so the other concept of creation stories that our elders tell us is that we came either 2 places. We came from the stars, the star people, our relatives, and we came out of the ground. Caverns in the Black Hills of South Dakota are 6 billion years old. And so, who's to say? But it's not really that important where we come from. I mean, it's good to know, to get an idea. And so, people will say, should we say Native American or should we say American Indian? You can say both. But if you're really going to go to Arizona or South Dakota and see the Native people, know who you're going to be meeting. I'm going to go see my Lakota friend, Reuben Fast Horse, out in South Dakota. I'm going to go see my friend, Chris Sanchez, down in Navajo country. That's better. You'll get more of both of you, both parties that are coming, because Native people are very standoffish. I grew up not making eye contact because it's out of respect when you showed your eyes. It's out of disrespect. So you're disrespecting this person by looking into their eyes. We didn't do that. We looked down. So when my grandmother, who lived with us, and Asian people, Native American people, they always bring their elders into the home. We're one of the very few. We don't put them in homes, hospices or convalescent. We don't do that. We bring them in. And so they're with us. So the whole point of this is that American Indians, Native Americans, a word given to us by Congress in the last 50 years. Congress says if you're Athabascan, Aleut, Inuit, Yupik, Samoan, Hawaiian, you're Native American. If you are like myself, an enrolled member of a tribe. I'm with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, which straddles the border of North and South Dakota. You're Native American. Not all African Americans are African. They're Native American as well. We took them in. The Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, the five civilized nations absorbed a lot of the slaves. They had slaves, but they integrated with them over time, married into them. And so they have a lot of, all black people here in America have Native American ancestors. So if we look at that, so Native American is just a fairly new term. It kind of dilutes us. Native American. American Indian is fine. Indian comes from the Latin root word indios. Indios in Latin means of God, in God, and children of God. And that's not a bad word. So I'm always correcting teachers, American teachers, and I've spoken at all 50 states in the country, Alaska and Hawaii as well. I've been to New Zealand, Australia, Germany, England, Canada, Belgium to speak, in London, BBC, and to just create an awareness. So what we're really doing today is expanding our consciousness through this history, living history, and all these reenactors, and you coming, because you're not going to be the same when you leave. You're thinking differently now. You're not on the time. You're not looking at your next schedule. I got to get some gas. I got to get ATM. Sure, yeah, we need to do that. But here, we're really coming together and expanding our consciousness. And when you expand consciousness, you cannot unexpand it. It's there. And so you'll be my voice. When this is all said and done, this weekend said and done, you'll be representing all of us here by talking to other people. Hey, they got a living history over at Ringwood Banner. You should go check it out. Pretty interesting. So American Indian and Native American are both good terms, but to know the people and where you're going, then find out who they are, where they are, and don't be afraid. Like I said, they may not make eye contact with you, but when my grandmother would walk by my bedroom, or I'd walk by her bedroom and say, "Trakoja, leche tuma hiwo na chbaya utaka, wokla kikte." Grandson, come in and sit next to me on the bed. I want to talk to you. And so when my grandmother would look at me, I wouldn't look at her. I'd look down out of respect. But when she looked away, then I can address her, answer her questions. So this kind of thing was going on between us, and that's a sign of respect. So when I was going to school, it was a half Native, half Native American, half Native and non-Native, was what I'm trying to say. In South Dakota, 1970s, where I grew up, there were no black kids, there were no Asian kids, there were no Latino kids, there were no any other kids, a minority. I was the black kid, Asian kid, Latino kid, and I'm Native. So I got in fights all the time, usually with gingers. I don't know why, but redhead guys that I was fighting with. And that's when I was off school. My dad was going to college to get his business ad degree, and we lived off the reservation. And so I grew up I was the one or two Native kids in the whole school. So I would have to fight sometimes, most times. Then at the end of the school year, summer kicked in, and we went home. We went back to the reservation. And there I still got into fights with my own relatives, my cousins, Native American cousins. And because you sound like a white boy, that's why. So I was straddling the fence, and that's where I am today too, where I feel like I have one foot in this world and one foot in my native world, and try to convey this in that way. My father was very neutral. He didn't choose sides. He just listened to both and came to, if they really wanted to know, he never gave advice. He always suggested, maybe you could try it like this. We can do it like that. And so we'd work with it in that way. At this time, I just take a little break. I want to play you a song. This is this is a chanchecha, a drum, and the stick is called a ichabu, a drumstick. This is called a wiikijo, wiikijo. And wiikijo means referring to the whistling breath, like the wind. And so this song is called a Wioshte Olowa. Wioshte Olowa is a love song. Only the men would utilize this in that way, and the drum as well. But nowadays, we're more advanced that women are singing too and playing flute. But the man would use this on a day like this at a teepee. He'd go and want to woo a woman, a wife. And as he would do that, he'd bring horses to trade for her hand. And if he didn't allow it, he said, yeah, no. And so then he would resort, and if they truly loved each other, man and woman, he would come in the cool of the evening by her teepee, her lodge, and play a love song. And if she wanted to, she would elope with him. And we'll talk a little bit about that in somewhere, but I want to play this song. O techikena ota chante mashicha. It's with a difficult heart that I have this. Dohaya una iotie wakecha mawa onte. Every time you come near me, I feel sad and I feel like I want to die. So even then they knew love through their own way. And so my heart is very sad. Anybody have a question at this time? Kind of curious? Yes. Oh, yeah, I know. My paint's coming off.
No, talk about the significance and the whole
Oh,
point of
right.
the Constitution
Thank you, Susie.
and the Constitution.
Yeah, and the what?
The line in the Constitution.
All right, the U.S. Constitution, and I didn't bring it. I don't have it in my bag right now, but I do carry a card, like a driver's license, an ID card. It's a tribal ID card with a number, IU 3027292, which I thought about tattooing on my arm, but she won't let me, because the Nazis did that to the Jews, and the Americans have done that to us. So I thought about doing that because we're the only people in this country, not blacks, not Asian, not Latino, not anybody else, not white, that have to carry a card, not just a driver's license, but an enrollment number to a reservation. Why? Because the U.S. Constitution still has it in the writing that the savages, we weren't real people when they made that. Because we had land, we had timber, we had water, we had resources, and the Americans wanted that. And so they cheat us through deceptive ways. The sale of Manhattan. I once saw the beads, the chevron beads. They're really, really big in Crazy Horse Mountain in South Dakota in the Black Hills. And the chevron beads, this gentleman I knew, he had a table, and this is where the place where people have an art market, beadwork, quill work, feathers, whatnot, they'd sell. But this man was Native American, but he was dressed modernly, he had short hair, and he had a big book. And the book was open, and he had nothing else. He had a glass velvet tray, and the chevron beads were in there. So I said, can you tell me what this is? And he just pointed to the book. I looked at the book. The Sale of Manhattan. These were the original beads that the Dutch used to occupy and buy Manhattan. Now, the Native Americans had never had a concept to buy and sell. So how do you do that? You take advantage of them. And that's what they did. The Dutch came. They called that place, well, I'll tell you later. What it was, Manhattan was a neutral grounds for the Six Nations, Onondaga, Cayuga, Tuscarora, Seneca, Mohawk, Oneida tribes, where they would all hunt, and they had the same type of similar language, different dialects. And so when the Dutch came, they friended them, and the Dutch had the idea of buying it. But how do you share that with somebody who doesn't know the concept of sell and buy? We bartered. So he said, yeah, you can use that if you want, thinking they were going to hunt. Well, the next year they come back to hunt, the Indians, and there were fences all the way up. We could no longer go in. And that's what I'm talking about with this Constitution, that were savages, and they used treaties. And they broke every treaty. Now, treaty you cannot break. It's international law. There's treaties with Germany, there's treaties with other countries. We respect them. We do it. We follow suit. Well, Native Americans, they took our language away. Then they took our children away, put them in boarding schools to go by the clock and the bell, to be servants for upper crust Americans. Took the kids away. Some never went home. Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania is attest to that. You'll see the little headstones, the graves. Some of these children never went home. Their parents were never told that they had passed. And this is Apache children in the Southwest, Tlingit in Seattle, Lakota in the Dakotas, Mohawk, Oneida, everywhere. They put all these children in that place. And I still have yet to go there. I'd like to play flute and speak. But that's the reality of this country. Slavery, genocide is a foundation. But it's up to us to awaken. And through this living history, we can do that and understand. Now, I wasn't there, and you weren't there. Now, I've had people come up to me afterwards, the program, and cry and say, I'm so sorry. I said, it's okay, I wasn't there. But what you do now is important. Share this. Open up. Be awakened. And like I said, when you expand consciousness, you cannot unexpand it. it's there forever. So the song I shared with you is a love song. I sung a honor song for you today, and I want to share a little bit more. How are we doing on time?
5 after 1.
After 1. Okay. Okay, we're still good? Okay. Just do this and give me the high side, and then 5 minutes I'll wrap it up. But I'll be here tomorrow too as well. So that is kind of the story with that, and what the face paint represents is a leadership sign. We painted our horses. I used to paint my car in the gas tank, the red hand, like we do with our ponies long ago, and hail marks on the forefront, or lightning, zigzags, and circle around the eyes for better vision. And they would have the double cross on the shoulder blades, and that was a symbol of the dragonfly, so that your horse may go like the dragonfly, up, down, sideways, backwards, forwards, and in war. Now, believe it or not, there are only 2 people in this country, 2 Native American tribes, that have defeated the U.S. military. My people, Lakota, at the Little Bighorn with General George Armstrong Custer from West Point, and the Seminole Nation of Florida. It's hard to fight swamp people. You gotta be a swamp person to do that. And so we're the only ones to do that. And in doing so, we contributed so much in warfare. The way they fought was they'd march on to the field, the British would march, point, shoot, die. That was it. We didn't do that. We had guerrilla warfare. We hid in the trees, in the creek. The best guerrilla warfare people were Apache, because they would lay in the sand, put a blanket over themselves and cover it so you didn't see them. And when they rode in column, the bluecoats, they would spring out of the ground like a Venus flytrap, take them down. That's guerrilla warfare. So we have that kind of influence in the army. The Lakota, when they fought, there's no trees, just prairie. So you can't hide behind anything. And what they would do is that we created flanking. You may or may not know what that is. We'd ride straight at them. We'd come right at them, go over them. Some of us would fall, they would die too, and then we'd turn around and come back. And in the midst of doing that, going over and coming back, they were so concerned about the first wave that they didn't see on the sides. There were other Lakota waiting, and they would come from that direction. So front, right, and left, and then they would turn around and come back again. And so we were able to defeat the U.S. military in that way through our guerrilla warfare in that sense. Any questions, somebody? Yes, sir.
What was the ceremony you started with, the feathers and honoring, or?
Like a good question. What's the significance of feathers? Think of it like when you see a general with all the accolades, epitaphs, or whatever they call them, medals on the sides here. You knew that was somebody important. So when you saw a headdress, that's a headman. And people to think, oh, it's a male society, Indian America, Native America. No. This world, before it became American, was matrilineal, matriarchal. The women had say, the women had power. They still do. Women outlive us, men, hands down. They bear our children along the way. They can take a lot of pain, more than we could. And I've been told many times, you would never be able to give birth, Reuben, because you'd be dead. It's tough. I get that. So women had the power, women had the say, and when Native American men went to war or hunting, they would counsel with the men. But people didn't know that the women had their counsel too. Had women, medicine women, midwives. And what they would do is send a little boy or little girl, if the men asked, can we go do this fight, or can we go hunt? The women would counsel, and then they would take a stone. If it was a white stone, no. If it was a red, I know this is not red, but if it was a red stone, yes, they would. You can go. But they had the say and the power. Why no? Because we need you here. What if the enemy comes? We need protection. And so the men would do that. Men are expendable. We die. If you look at it like the elk or the bison, the male breeds many females to keep the life going. But he dies. It's like the candle that burns the brightest burns the shortest in that way. And so Native American men had more than one wife. Sometimes two, sometimes three, depending how proficient you were with being a warrior or a trade barter seller in that sense. And it's really the first wife that picked the second wife or the third wife. Why? How? She needs help. The teepee was the woman's home. It wasn't the man's. And if she didn't want him anymore, the Indian divorce, that she'd take all his things, put it outside. Capiche? Bada bing, bada boom. You're done. You're out. Kind of like today. Sometimes that happens. So, yeah, it was his first wife picked the second or third wife only because my sisters are not married. You're going to marry them. And then you can have relations. But of course, that's a different psychological aspect. Sexuality was different. Our bodies were nude. Our children ran around nude up until 6, 7 years old. And there was no shame. That was taught by Christianity. When they couldn't get rid of us through military warfare, they brought in Christianity. And so that's how they became these schools with these children in them. To kill the Indian and save the man. That was the missionary slogan. Kill the Indian, save the man. And you would do that by taking them out of their culture, out of their language, out of their where they're used to, putting them in a foreign place and breaking them that way. That was the whole concept in that sense. I will be here again tomorrow. I'm going to close here with something that's special, yes. Oh, the significance of the red paint is leadership, but it's also, today it's modernly seen as this Native American girl, Spokane Indian from Spokane, Washington. She ran a cross-country race and won state finals, and she painted her face for the symbol of the missing, murdered indigenous women of this country that have gone missing. We don't know where they are. And so the red face constitutes that to remind us. So symbology is very important for us Native Americans. And saying that to close with this, I'll say one word, but in several different languages. Native. The word is coffee. If you are in Blackfeet territory in Montana, Idaho, Canada, they say sukapi, sukapi, for coffee. If you're in Navajo territory, among the Dene, as they call themselves, the Dene, for coffee they say ichwe, or achwe, for coffee. If you're among the Hidatsa Rickarraw people in North Dakota, Mandan, they say, the Hidatsa say midi shibijah, midi shibijah. And the Rickarraw say skadid, skadid. These are all words for coffee. Among the Ojibwa, they say makade mashkiki waboon. And if you want a blueberry pie to go with your cup of muckaday, you would say, for blueberry pie, midi baski sigan bada jigan go say jigani bagoy jigan. Midi baski midi sigan bada jigan go say jigani bagoy jigan. Makade mashkiki waboon, black medicine water. Makade mashkiki midi baski midi sigan bada jigan go say jigani bagoy jigan means telling a story from the time you take the berry off the tree to the whole process of pulling the pie out of the oven. That's one word. One word that speaks volumes. So what I'd like to do is close with a poem. It's called An Indian's Prayer by Chief White Cloud, who is Lakota Sioux like me. And what he did, I'll share with you. Oh, among those Lakota for coffee, we say Starbucks. So what I want to do is close with this language, ancient language of sign and gesture. There was an Eastern Native American sign language that I haven't been able to locate yet, but I'm showing you the Western one. There were so many tongues at one time, and that's why the coffee was to tell you the different languages that were here before French, before Spanish, before anybody else, Russian. We had our own language. They tried to make a new Spain, a new England, a new France. They ran out. So I'd like to show this for you in silence, and I'll say the poem to you. O great mystery, whose voice I hear in the wind, and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me, I am small and weak. One of your many, many children am I. Let me walk in beauty, and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunrise. Make my hands respect the many things you have made, and make my ears sharp to hear your voice, and make me wise, that I may know the many things you've hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come before you with clean hands and straight eyes, so that when life fades as a fading sunset, my spirit may come before you without shame. There are no words for goodbye in Native America, so I won't say goodbye. I'll say Doksha Ake. Can you say that with me? Doksha Ake. One more time. Doksha Ake. Until we see each other, we'll speak again. Doksha Ake. Thank you. Uh-oh. Do we have time for questions, or? Alrighty. Any questions you might have? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. How many Native American languages are there, and are they distinct from dialects? Are there distinct languages and dialects, and do they go out of one another?
I'll start with my language. As a teacher from preschool to grade school, teaching at NYU through the LLC program. In that way, I grew up with the language, but the Lakota language, the people started, they say, either from the Bering Sea, crossing the Ice Age, or the Santee River in North Carolina, and they went north, but kept getting defeated, because on the East Coast here, they're all confederacies. That's where Benjamin Franklin got his, by visiting the native people and creating a confederacy, where they taught them one arrow is one colony, one nation. It can break. But if you got 6 arrows, it's harder to break. Or you look on the dollar bill, 13 arrows, 13 colonies. Laurel leaf for peace. The eagle holds that. So in learning that, we kept getting defeated by the Iroquois. We went west to the Algonquin. We got defeated, and the Siouan people finally came out to the west and created an empire. Part of Canada, half of Montana, half of Wyoming, half of Nebraska, half of Iowa, Minnesota, up until Michigan. So there were so many So we had to defend all the time. And underneath our umbrella of language as the mother tongue, you have the Lakota, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, in that order. Dakota are older. Lakota are more, many. And Nakota are in Canada. And underneath us, we have the Osage, the Omaha, Ponca, and the Crow. But they'll never admit it. They won't acknowledge that. So those nations are under us. Just as well here, the different languages, the 6 nations, Onondaga, Susquehanna, Seneca, Mohawk, Oneida, are all linguistically tied. But unfortunately, many tribes have passed. They say the first European boot that hit the earth, they walked into ghost villages, not because they were warfaring, but because disease that the Europeans brought took them out. So they died out. And with them, their languages. So like the Narragansett language is gone. The Mandan of North Dakota, the people are diluted and their language is gone. So we're trying. The Hawaiians have brought their language back, and the Lakota are bringing theirs back now too. So I utilize it in everything I do. I'll give you a word that you may not think you speak Native American, but you do. Our accent tells us that. I've lived in Australia for 12 years. Good day, mate. Flat out like a drinking water. Talking like they do. Or the British. But the English do not own their language anymore. The people that speak more than anybody else, the Commonwealth, American, Canadian, are the Chinese. So that language has changed. We speak as Americans and Canadians. Why? Because you use Native American terms. Like I said, they tried to make a New Spain, New France, New Germany, New England. So when you use these words, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Delaware, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Nevada, Alaska, Hawaii. 27 states, that's over half, have Native American names. What do they mean? Dakota, friend or ally. Minnesota, Minnesota, Long River. Smoky water. Nebraska, Ponca, floodplain. Mississippi, Ojibwe, Mississippi, Long River. Ohio, Long River, Algonquin. Connecticut, Narragansett, Long River. Common names, common terms, simple. So this language that we carry now is mixed with Native American. You are speaking Native American.
I just want to add to that, if it's okay. There are 550 tribes in America. Most are very diluted, and most do not know their language. The language is lost. When Reuben was talking about the boarding schools, one of the many things they did to the children there, if they spoke their language, was to pull their fingernails out of their fingers. That was one of the many tortures. I just wanted to add that. I'm usually the bad cop.
Thank you.
He's the good cop.
She's right.
I want them to know that where Reuben is from is the poorest place in America. And if anybody has ever been to a third world country, they're living in broken down cars, and they're living in horrible poverty, and it just continues generation after generation. There are many reasons why, which I won't get into, but it is the poorest place in America, and I think every American should be exposed to the way these people are living and why.
If you want to contribute, people ask me afterwards, how can I help? You can go out there and help out, or look up tipirazors.org, TIPIRAISERS, Razors. And they are a family non-Native American family out of Colorado that go to the Pine Ridge. They'll even ride horseback from Denver to Pine Ridge, which is 22 days. To raise awareness. They'll bring a contingency of plumbers and carpenters, tradesmen to help on the reservation, and the Native people in turn in the fall. Native American month is November. And I've gone many times and spoken at universities, colleges, high schools, and whatnot. So So the exchange goes on. You can contribute there, or you can give to the American Indian College Fund. That's okay. But spreading the word, the cravenness of this camp, this living history of who you meet and what you are learning about, because we're not taught enough in our schools. It's either Big Bang Theory, dinosaurs, cowboys and Indians, World War I, World War II, Korea, and that's it.
They don't teach about the massacres.
Yeah, they don't talk about the massacres and
The missing and murdered indigenous
women.
If one white girl goes missing, you see it on the news. Well, there are hundreds and hundreds of young women, and they have to get to a place to buy food for their families, and it's 80 miles to the closest city, which is Rapid City, and they're being murdered by the hundreds, and it's going on right now, and that's one of what the red hand symbolizes, are the missing and murdered indigenous women.
We'll take one more question. Yes, sir.
How universal was sign language? You see in the movies, one tribe meets another tribe, maybe not speaking the same spoken language, but the sign language apparently was common.
Yep, it was taught. For us, Western Sign Language came from the Kiowa in Texas and expanded north because there were so many tongues here that they used sign and gesture to speak in that way. So this is a very American thing to do. And we adopted that. We say, I said in the beginning, choose up below. With the great heart, I shake your hand. That's American. Really, greeting for one another in Native America is what I showed you, respect. Open-handed, no weapon. I greet you that way. And eventually came down to, who? Or as the cartoons say, how? It wasn't how, it was who. And only the men said that. We had a language, women and language of men. We had 5 genders: straight male, straight female, gay female, transgender. Like I said, with no shame in our bodies. Different whole mentality now. But 6 out of 10 Americans have Native American ancestry. 6 out of 10. You may have it in your family tree. And we all eat Native American food. 80% of the world's food. Corn, beans, squash, potatoes, berries, blueberries, wild rice, maple syrup. But everybody eats McDonald's now. So 80% of the world's food comes from North and South America. The 2 staple ones, chocolate and corn. We feed it to our cattle, we feed it to ourselves. And corn syrup is the closest thing to our human glucose than any other plant derivative. Corn syrup. Alrighty. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. John Vanderleet, ladies and gentlemen. Star of the show. Great. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Same bat channel, same bat time.
Thank you, Reuben.
And George Washington will be coming on as well
Tomorrow.
afterwards. Enjoy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.